Well, we want to take a look at some more real estate exam practice questions, and this is going to be dealing with property disclosures, some mandated disclosures, primarily that the seller would have to make, but obviously there's a lot of responsibility here that could fall on the real estate agent as well. But let's take a look at some of these questions and see how we do on it. So the first question, what is the primary purpose of the property disclosure statement? And obviously if you're selling real estate, most states certainly require sellers to fill out and provide a property condition disclosure statement. So it's asking, what is the primary purpose? Is it to highlight aesthetic features of the property, to outline known flaws affecting the property value? That one sounds good. To negotiate property price, or to provide neighborhood information? I think that one is pretty easy, pretty cut and dry. But it's to lay out all the known defects, issues, flaws that would affect the property value. And by the way, I get this question all the time. Well, what's a defect? I mean, at what point is something a defect that should be disclosed versus one that's not that big a deal? Well, as it says here, basically anything that could affect the property value, or in some cases, maybe even the property use. But if it's going to basically affect the property, then it absolutely needs to be disclosed. So that's number one. Next one, who is responsible for providing the accurate and complete disclosure statement? Now, I think when you look at the options here available, it's pretty clear what that answer is going to be. Buyer, well, obviously not the buyer. The seller and real estate agent, the home inspector, or mortgage lender. Well, obviously the best answer here is the seller and real estate agent. But here's something you need to understand when you go to take that state exam. And I've said this in some other videos, but in case you haven't seen that or heard it, let me repeat it. When you go to take the state exam, one of the you get like a information or instructions page, I guess you might call it. Might be a better title. Kind of instructions on how to take the exam. That's usually like the first thing that pops up on the computer. And if you were really paying attention to what these instructions are saying, and my guess is most people don't, they're just wanting to get onto the questions and be done with it. But one of the things you would notice, might notice, that the instructions will not say, it does not say to read the question and select the right answer. Now you would think that would be exactly what you're going to do, but that's not the instructions you're going to be given. Rather, what it will likely say, read the question and select the best answer. That's a lot different. That you got to be careful with that when you're taking the exam. Because what will happen oftentimes, you'll read a question, then you're looking at the options, and you might say, well, it could be A or B, or quite frankly, it could be A, B, or C. Any of those would be a right answer. And you're probably right. The problem is they're not asking you for the right answer. What are they asking for? The best answer. So even though you could potentially have more than one right answer to choose from, given the question they're asking, only one of them would be the best answer. And that's what you got to pay attention to, because I'm afraid what happens a lot when we're taking the exam and we don't really understand what I just said. We're thinking, well, if you got two or three right answers to choose from, am I supposed to do eeny, meeny, miny, mo, or what? And then our frustration builds up, our anxiety builds up, and that's where we start having problems when we take the exam. So just keep that in mind. In fact, just as another example, y'all, you may read the question and in your mind you know the right answer, and you look at the options provided and none of them are right. None of them are the right answer, at least from what you've been taught. Well, again, it's not necessarily that somebody taught you wrong. It's just, again, what are they asking you to do? Given the question, then which would be the best answer? So, y'all, you may have a question where you don't even get the right answer, but y'all, you're going to have to use your knowledge and understanding from the material and then determine then which would be the best answer. And that's a little bit, it's not too big a deal on this particular question. But y'all, obviously B, seller and real estate agent, would absolutely be the best answer given the options we had to choose from. But is the real estate agent responsible for providing an accurate and complete disclosure statement? Well, I will tell you, it could vary a little bit depending on what state you live in and what your state law requires. You know, obviously I'm in South Carolina, and the requirement here is, the law states it is the seller's responsibility to fill out the property disclosure statement and to ensure the buyer gets a copy of it. Everything is squarely on the seller. It's not the real estate agent's responsibility to fill the form out, or quite frankly, even to provide it to the buyer. The law says it's the seller's responsibility to complete and deliver this property disclosure statement to the seller. So why does it say seller and the real estate agent? I think there's one word in that question that would make it inclusive of the real estate agent, and that word is accurate. Who is responsible for providing an accurate and complete disclosure statement? My point is this. If you're if you're the listing agent, and maybe, for example, maybe you're aware that that roof leaks when it rains, and and the seller does not state that on the property disclosure, then agent, you have an obligation to disclose it. Okay, so agent does have responsibility to ensure it's accurate to the best of their knowledge. Okay, so let's just be clear there. All right, let's look at the next question. What should buyers do if they find an issue in the property disclosure statement? Well, they could ignore it. Doesn't sound like a good idea. Renegotiate or ask for repairs. That might be an option. Cancel the deal and forfeit the deposit. Don't like that at all, especially when it comes to forfeiting the deposit. And then D, sue the real estate agent. Well, obviously the best answer is going to be to renegotiate or ask for repairs. But let's look at that. Sue the real estate agent. Can the buyer sue the real estate agent if they found a discrepancy in the disclosure statement? Well, potentially they could, and certainly if you could show that agent knew or maybe even should have known about the issue and again didn't disclose it. So look, anybody can sue anybody, but at the end of the day, is suing the real estate agent the best answer here? No. Let's try to renegotiate, meaning, if you've got a $3,000 defect or something that's going to cost $3,000 to repair, then maybe we can renegotiate the sales price, or just ask the seller to make the repairs. Okay? That certainly seems like the better answer for sure. Okay. Why should buyers get a home inspection even with a property disclosure statement? I get that question from my own buyers a lot. Why do I need to spend all this money for a home inspection if the law requires the seller to disclose all the defects with the property? And if they don't disclose it, then couldn't they be legally liable for damages? Well, potentially, but here's the problem. The seller is only required to disclose what they know. Known defects. Could there be problems with the house and the seller have no knowledge of, didn't even know the problem existed? I promise you that's the case. And if for some reason you don't believe that, call a home inspector to come inspect your home today. I promise you, when he leaves, you will have pages and pages of issues they found with the property that you may very well didn't even know the problem was there. So just keep that in mind. So why should the buyer get the home inspection? Well, sellers may not be aware of all the issues. That's kind of what we were just talking about. It adds value to the property. Well, no, not necessarily. It's required by law. Are buyers required by law to get a home inspection? No, that's an option. Now, it is highly recommended, but it's certainly not required. But D, it allows negotiation for repairs. Well, that's true. That's a true statement. It does allow for negotiation for repairs. But quite frankly, do I have to have a home inspection to be able to negotiate known repairs? No, don't have to. So what do you think the best answer might be? I like A. The seller may not be aware of all the issues. Buyer, that's why you need to have a home inspection, because the seller may not know about all the issues or problems that exist. Okay, moving on. What is the significance of unpermitted renovations in a property disclosure? Now, I will tell you, that's a big deal right here. And now that we have the HGTV and other similar TV shows, channels that all the DIY people do it themselves, and they can watch that 30-minute program, and now they know how to build a house. It's amazing that we can do that. But we're required to have a permit, to do certain additions or even renovations. A lot of this stuff, if not most of this stuff, requires a permit. Problem is, a lot of homeowners do not get a permit. They might go build a shed in their yard or a shop or something in their backyard. That requires a permit. But I'm just telling you, a lot of people don't get the permit. But what is the significance of the unpermitted renovations in a property disclosure? A, they improve property value. Not sure. B, they may not comply with building codes. That would be significant. C, they are minor issues. And D, they are of higher quality. What do you think the biggest issue is here when it comes to unpermitted renovations? I think you would agree. Y'all building codes. Did they construct or renovate whatever it is they renovated? Is it to code? And why does that matter? First of all, let me make sure you understand something about permits. Now, first of all, again, do you have to disclose? And I'm talking about if you're the agent, you need to be asking these questions. If they've got another structure, a shop or whatever, that they built in their backyard, then as a real estate agent, you should know. From the instruction, from the material, from the class, hopefully you've taken, or maybe you're getting ready to take, that kind of stuff requires a permit. You have to get approved and it has to be permitted. Well, what's the point? What's the purpose of that permit? There could be a number of reasons, but two things that we really care about as real estate agents. Number one, the first thing they're going to look at when you send it to the county, to the building department in the county or municipality, wherever you live or wherever this property is, you submit your application for a permit. And the first thing that the municipality is going to do or answer is, are you allowed to have what you're proposing to do? Is there some code or zoning issue that will say you can't have that? Now, and obviously, if you can't, then they're going to deny the permit. So, number one, are you allowed to have whatever it is you're proposing to do? And then, assuming you are, then the municipality will grant you the permit and let you do it. Now, once they give you the permit, then they will say, go ahead and start renovation or building or whatever you're doing. But once you get to a certain point, then you must stop. Our building inspector will come out to make sure that everything you've done is to code. You've done it properly. It's safe, right? So, two things we know: if there was a permit for let's say, for example, a shop. If we know there's a permit, then there's those two things I now know as real estate agent. Number one, you're allowed to have it here, and two, it's safe, because I know it's been inspected by the building inspector. But if it was not permitted, then I don't know the answer to either one of them questions. I don't even know if you're allowed to have what you've done, and I certainly don't know if it's safe, right? So B would be the right and best answer here. They may not comply with building codes if we find out it was unpermitted. All right. And by the way, the point I was trying to make at the beginning of this question, as an agent, you have to ask these questions. You can't just say, well, they never told me there was no permit. Okay, well, did you ask? Maybe they didn't know they were supposed to tell you something like that. As a real estate agent and as a professional, these are things you got to ask. Maybe you see they put a brand new deck on the back. They had to replace the other one. The wood, the decking was getting rotten or whatever. They replaced the deck. Well, do you have to have a permit to replace a deck? Probably most of the time you do. I will tell you, there are some municipalities I'm aware of, they do not require a permit to replace a deck, depending on how high the deck is. I want to say like 3 feet seems to be a common number. If it's if it's no more than 3 feet high, then you may not require a permit. But if it is, you require a permit. But my point is, you have to ask the question: did you get a permit for this? We got to know. Okay. Why would a seller benefit from providing a thorough disclosure statement? Would it be to expedite the sale? I don't think that's going to expedite the sale. Could it protect them from future claims? That could do that. Could they raise the asking price? I don't think so. Or to avoid the home inspection? No, I think buyers are typically going to have that home inspection regardless. So, obviously the best answer here is to protect yourself from future claims. Seller, you don't provide an accurate property disclosure statement, you're opening yourself up to lawsuits. You are. So when you provide it, that could protect you from future claims. All right, which of the following is not required in a property disclosure statement? So, in other words, which of the following would the seller not have to disclose stuff about? A, structural issues. Well, that's not right. We know, if there's a structural issue, that better be disclosed. HVAC, heating and air problems, that's got to be disclosed. Insurance claims, that would have to be disclosed. Cosmetic details like wall color. Well, y'all know, y'all, the color of the walls got nothing to do with the condition of the property. So I think D is the right answer. Cosmetic details like wall color. Y'all, cosmetic stuff typically you don't deal with or worry about in a property disclosure statement. What should a seller do if they discover a new issue with the property after signing the disclosure statement? So the seller's already filled it out. They've already provided it to the buyer. But at some point after that fact, they discover or find out that we do have an issue with something. What should the seller do? A, ignore the issue since the statement is already signed. Now, and I will tell you, that's what a lot of homeowners, they try to fall back on that one. And they'll say, well, at the time I filled the form out, I was not aware of any problems. Okay, I can tell you that's not going to hold water right there. But let's look at B. Amend the disclosure and inform the buyer. I think that's going to probably be the best answer, but let's see. C, wait for the buyer to notice the problem. Wrong answer. Cancel the sale immediately. Well, that could be an option. There's no doubt. We could try to just get out of the sale and cancel it. But would that be the best answer? Y'all, the best answer is going to be B. Amend the disclosure and then inform the buyer of what the issue you've now discovered. Now, this may result in canceling the sale or the contract or terminating the contract, depending on what it is, how serious it is. But, the first thing they should do is, again, they have to amend the disclosure. Now, is this very common? Absolutely. Happens all the time. Well, how and why does it happen? What will happen a lot is, when is that seller going to find out that there are issues with the house that they may not have known about at the time they filled out the property disclosure? When the buyer decides to do the home inspection. Could the home inspector find problems, and maybe even significant problems, expensive problems, that the seller did not know about at the time they filled out the disclosure? Yeah, it happens all the time. But so now that the buyer knows about it, and what typically will happen, the buyer will send what we call a repair addendum to the seller saying, look, here are the things that the home inspector found wrong with the property. Obviously, we did not know about this at the time we made the offer. So we want these items repaired. Well, now, seller, you now have knowledge of this problem. So now, as long as the seller agrees to make those repairs and, in fact, make the repairs and we close, then there's no issue here for the seller. But if, say, the seller refuses to make the repairs, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm not making those repairs. Well, then obviously the buyer has a right to terminate the contract, get their money back, their earnest money, and go find another house. And then what's the seller now going to do? They're going to put the house back on the market. Well, guess what, seller? You now have knowledge of all kind of issues potentially. You may have a 30, 40, 50 page home inspection full of things wrong with the house that you did not know about at the time you initially filled it out. So now that means you've got to redo that disclosure statement. You got to now put all these known issues in that disclosure. So I'm just telling you, if you're that listing agent, if you might want to make sure your seller understands this. If they get a repair addendum from the buyer and they refuse to make the repairs, you better make sure they know what's about to happen. It means you're going to have to redo your disclosure statement, include everything the home inspector wrote up, which could be a lot of stuff. And good luck finding another buyer. That might scare all the rest of the buyers off, depending on what all they found. right? Yeah, I just think you might be better off. Let's try to work this thing out with this buyer. They're under contract with us. Let's see if we can't either renegotiate the price or agree to make the repair, whatever we need to do. But if you let that buyer off the hook, you've got to redo all that disclosure. Okay. What should a real estate agent do if a client asks about the crime rates in the neighborhood? Should real estate agents know what the crime rates are in each neighborhood in their market? No. That is not our job. That is not what real estate agents do. So chances are, I couldn't imagine why any agent would know what the crime rate is. But could you get that question? You could. Well, then should you try to answer the question? Certainly if you don't know what the crime rate is. I wouldn't think so. But let's look what our options are. A, tell them it's not relevant. I don't know that that's a good idea because it could be relevant. Direct them to the local law enforcement or public websites. Okay. C, make up an answer. Never a good idea. Ignore the question. Not a good idea either. I think the obvious, certainly best answer, just tell them to, call the local police department, law enforcement, and see what they can tell you about the neighborhood. But just tell the buyer. That's not something agents get into. We don't get into investigating crime rates and stuff like that. So I can't answer that question. You're gonna have to talk to the local police department. Okay. All right. If a buyer finds an undisclosed easement on the property, what should they do? Well, A, ignore it. Typically ignoring stuff is usually not going to be a good idea, but let's see what our other options are. B, request the seller remove the easement. Well, that's a possibility. C, sue for non-disclosure. Anyway, D, inquire about its impact on the property's use. Now, if you look at the question, it says if a buyer finds an undisclosed easement on the property, what should they do? What we don't know in the question, have they already bought this property? Or is this before they actually closed and bought the property? So it's really not a good question in that sense, because depending on whether before or after they closed, that could certainly have an impact on the right answer here, because B or C could be the right answer depending on that. So I'm not a big fan of this question, but I will tell you, I would have to assume that this is prior to closing. I don't like that. I don't like assuming. So I'm just going to tell you right now, I don't think this is a good question. So I apologize for that. But if I had to pick what I would think would be the best answer, I would say D. Inquire about its impact on the property's use. Because just because there's an easement on the property, does that necessarily mean that's a bad thing? No, not really. That easement might be there for you to be able to access the property. So the easement might be there for you, right? I say for you, for the person that owns the property, because without that easement, they may not have any other legal access to the property. So I would inquire about its impact for sure. I think that's what I would have to go with first. Let's see what they say. Yep. Inquire about the property's impact. That's where I would go. But if it's an easement that does create an issue for whatever reason, either on the property or because the potential buyer has an issue with the easement, then you could certainly go back and maybe see if the seller can't get that easement removed. But yeah, again, the best answer and the first thing you should do, inquire about its impact. How does this easement impact the property's use, or in some cases, the property value? I would be looking at that. Okay. So there was a few review questions, 10, 12, something like that. But y'all, hopefully you found that this review was helpful to you. We're going to be doing a lot more. You'll have more videos coming up. But look, if there's anything we can do to help you, you can certainly contact us at the Real Estate School for Success. You see our website there. Visit our website if you will. And anyway, hope this was helpful and hope you have a blessed day today.